In a dramatic turn of events, RFK Jr. is under intense scrutiny as he testifies before the Senate Committee on Trump's healthcare agenda. But here's where it gets controversial. The stakes couldn't be higher, especially after over 1,000 current and former agency employees accused Kennedy of jeopardizing public health and demanded his resignation. This isn't just a political issue, it's a matter of public safety and trust. Live updates. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testifies before Senate Committee. Source, CNN. https:// Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Health and Human Services Secretary, is currently testifying before a Senate committee about President Trump's healthcare agenda. The hearing comes at a critical time, with significant backlash against Kennedy's leadership. Yesterday, over 1,000 current and former HHS employees penned a letter accusing Kennedy of endangering public health and calling for his resignation. https://cnn.com/2025/health HHS employees letter RFK Jr. Ukraine calls stalled momentum in ending Russia's war. President Donald Trump is scheduled to speak with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky this morning. The call comes as efforts to end Russia's war in Ukraine have largely stalled, leaving the White House increasingly frustrated. https://cnn.com/politics Trump Zelensky Russia-Ukraine war. Epstein controversy, names will be named. GOP Rep. Thomas Massie and Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene have stated they are prepared to name names on any list compiled by survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. www.cnn.com/live news Trump administration Epstein files 0903-2500 Sine A. 2. Despite the mounting pressure, President Trump has dismissed the furor, even as women who claim to have been abused by Epstein continue to call for action. Senate hearing underway. The Senate Finance Committee hearing with Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now underway. We will provide updates as they become available. Shadow public health concerns. Dr. Susan Monares, who was recently removed from her position as director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, wrote in a Wall Street Journal opinion piece that there is a deliberate effort by the Trump administration to weaken the U.S. public health system and vaccine protections. Her firing, which occurred shortly after she took the helm at the CDC, led to the resignation of several high-level veteran agency officials, leaving the CDC leaderless during a crucial time. Calls for resignation. Over 1,000 current and former employees of the HHS wrote a letter to Kennedy, arguing that his leadership has put the health of all Americans at risk and demanding his resignation. www.cnn.com/2025-0903 health/HHS/employees letter RFK Jr. The letter highlights the growing concern among public health professionals about the direction of the HHS under Kennedy's leadership. First Lady's rare public event. First Lady Melania Trump will attend a rare public event at the White House this afternoon, hosting a meeting on artificial intelligence education. This marks her first public appearance since July 13 and the second meeting of the White House Task Force on Artificial Intelligence Education since President Trump signed an executive order on advancing AI education in April. The First Lady has previously highlighted both the promises and perils of the emerging technology, most recently promoting a presidential AI competition for school-age children. Key attendees, a trio of public sector AI leaders, including Google CEO Sundar Pichai, Code.org President Cameron Wilson, and IBM CEO Arvind Krishna, are expected to attend and speak. Members of the President's cabinet, such as Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, Education Secretary Linda McMahon, Energy Secretary Chris Wright, and Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer, are also expected to be present. Latest politics headlines. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testifies on the Hill. Kennedy promised answers on the causes of autism this month, but proposed studies have not yet begun. www.cnn.com/04 Health Kennedy Autism Public Health. National Guard morale falling fast. For the approximately 1,300 National Guard members serving in Washington, D.C., from out of the district, morale is plummeting. https://www.cnn.com/politics National Guardsmen deployed to D.C. balance. Trump threatens to mobilize National Guard in other cities. The president has threatened to deploy the National Guard to cities like Chicago, Baltimore, and New Orleans as part of his administration's crime crackdown. Here's how Chicago is preparing. https://www.cnn.com/Chicago National Guard deployment preparations. Harvard wins major court victory. A federal judge ruled in favor of Harvard, restoring more than $2 billion in federal research funding, though uncertainty remains for the Ivy League university. https://www.cnn.com/Harvard faces uncertainty even after major court victory. Middle East tensions. Hamas has agreed to a Gaza ceasefire deal that aligns with the U.S. proposal, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seeks endless war. President's schedule. President Trump is not expected to appear at any public events during the morning and afternoon today. However, he will host tech leaders for a dinner in the newly renovated Rose Garden tonight. The guest list includes Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Apple CEO Tim Cook, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates. The event will be closed to the press. Trump-Zelensky call. U.S. President Donald Trump will soon speak with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as efforts to end Russia's war in Ukraine have largely stalled. The call will take place on the sidelines of a Paris meeting of Ukraine's allies, chaired by French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, to discuss post-war guarantees as part of any potential peace deal. Epstein survivors speak out. A group of Jeffrey Epstein abuse survivors spoke for the first time on Capitol Hill yesterday, sharing their emotional accounts and urging Congress and President Trump for justice. Democratic Representatives Ro Khanna and GOP Representatives Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene joined them, adding pressure for more transparency on the Epstein case. The president reiterated his belief that the push to release documents related to Epstein is a Democrat hoax that never ends. https://www.cnn.com/politics/live news/Trump administration Epstein files 090325 F90003B. One survivor, Haley Robson, directly challenged Trump's assertion, stating, "There is no hoax. The abuse was real." dscnn.com/politics/live news/Trump administration Epstein files 090325 XN6C. Survivor Anuska DeGiorgio urged Trump to use his influence to help survivors. https://cnn.com/politics/live news/Trump administration Epstein files 090325 #CMF42 RN3B6N Ligi Gaidon, who worked with Trump in 2009, implored the president to support survivors' push for transparency. Maxwell slammed. Survivor Teresa Helm criticized Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's interview with Ghislaine Maxwell. https://cnn.com/politics/live news Trump administration Epstein files 090325 CMF44Z X001L3B6N5Y4. DeGiorgio warned that a pardon for Maxwell would undermine the sacrifices made by survivors. Emotional accounts. Sky Roberts, Virginia Giuffre's brother, made an emotional plea to lawmakers to seek justice for survivors. https://cnn.com/politics/live news/Trump administration Epstein files 09325 Sumkey PS. Edwards vowed to hold House Speaker Mike Johnson and lawmakers accountable as GOP leadership faces increasing pressure. https. Bipartisan push for transparency. A discharge petition requiring 5 more Republicans in addition to Massie is needed to force their bill to the floor, as every Democrat is expected to sign on. https://www.politics/live news 103255 27000B6 NEG. Growing calls for Kennedy's resignation. More than 1,000 current and former employees of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services wrote a letter to Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and members of Congress, arguing that his leadership has put the health of all Americans at risk and demanding his resignation. https://cnn.com/2025-0903 Health HHS Employees Letter RFK Jr. Public health, medical, and scientific groups, including the Infectious Diseases Society of America, the American Public Health Association, and the American Association, also called for Kennedy's resignation in a separate joint statement. https://idsociety.org/news/articles/2025 joint statement calling for Secretary Kennedy resignation. They emphasized that forcing high-level CDC experts to abandon sound science to meet Kennedy's agenda puts everyone at risk. In a direct appeal to President Trump, Public Citizen and 60 other organizations wrote a letter urging the president to fire Kennedy, citing him as the source of the chaos at the agency. https://www.citizen.org/article/letter to President Trump. And this is the part most people miss. The situation is far from resolved, and the coming days will likely bring more developments and debates. What do you think? Should Kennedy step down, or does he have a chance to redeem himself? Share your thoughts in the comments.